Dall-E 3 has finally been incorporated into ChatGPT Plus. So we're going to be diving deep into that, and I'm going to tell you my first impressions about Dall-E 3 and whether it's going to push Midjourney out of the water or whether it still has a little bit of work to go. So let's get right into it. To access Dall-E 3, all you have to do is, first of all, you need to be a ChatGPT Plus subscriber. So $20 a month, that's pretty good, especially considering the Dall-E 2 actually got expensive really quickly. It was easy to go over $20 like in a day if you weren't careful. So the fact that we're getting Dall-E 3 plus everything else ChatGPT has to offer for $20 a month is pretty good. And we're essentially getting unlimited generations. Although, from what I understand, Dall-E 3 has the same restrictions on it as you do with GPT-4, from what I understand it, which means you get 50 prompts every 3 hours, I believe. So, the way to access it, if you have ChatGPT Plus, is to come up here to GPT-4, and it'll give you the list of everything. It's got Browse with Bing, Advanced Data Analytics, plugins, and Dall-E 3. It's funny that these are, a lot of these been out for a while, but they still say they're in beta. We're going to go to Dall-E 3. And from here, we can now prompt it for an image. Now, right off the bat, there's one thing that I am not too happy about. Let's just go back to the default for a second. They recently added this ability to add images. So I could come here, click on this little icon at the bottom here, and then add an image. And then it could do things like describe that image and so forth. If you go to Dall-E 3, that little icon disappears. So there is currently no way to, say, upload an image and then have Dall-E 3 modify it. That's kind of what I was hoping we could get. Because what if you could take, say, a Midjourney image and then have Dall-E 3 enhance it or modify it in some way? That sounds really cool. That's the kind of thing that Adobe can do, even though the way you do it in Adobe is totally different. Adobe is really great for modifying existing images using their generative AI tools. But it looks like Dall-E 3 doesn't quite have that capability yet. I feel like it's something they've talked about, so I'm pretty sure it's a feature we will see in the future. But for now, not something that it offers, and that's a little disappointing to me. So that's like one tick down in my, I guess, first impressions, Dall-E 3. But let's go ahead and dive in and give it an actual prompt. I'm going to start with a prompt that I use frequently to sort of test these tools out. I'm going to say an epic fantasy book cover image with no text depicting, and the nice thing about Dall-E 3 is you can get much more specific with your prompts, and it can understand those things pretty well, and you don't have to say just like fantasy book cover image, comma, no text, comma, and, keep it as bare minimum as possible. It can actually understand language because we're using ChatGPT here. It understands language much better than any other AI art generator that I've worked with. So we're going to say depicting the Egyptian god Ra with the body of a man and the head of a falcon. I'm going to just say body of a black man because it will probably default in a way that we don't want. And the head of a falcon, epic pose, and fantasy armor. The background should be a wasteland desert with the sun rising in the behind Ra. The overall atmosphere should be epic and in a fantasy concept art style mixed with an epic fantasy book cover style. I know I already said the book cover image, but I'm just going to say it twice because I really wanted to get that in its mind. And I'm also going to add portrait mode, because so far, from what I'm able to tell, Dall-E 3 has 3 types of image ratios. They have square and a landscape mode and a portrait mode, and there's no way to fine-tune what that is. So once we give it that prompt, it gives you 4 different options here. And it's funny enough, it's actually writing its own prompts for each of these images based on the prompt that I gave it. And I'm not sure I like that, to be honest. I'd rather sometimes, because I've noticed looking at the prompt that sometimes the prompts that it writes miss something that I wanted. And so I don't necessarily know the lot. I'm sure there's some like technical reason why they're doing it that way. Ooh, oh, that's nice. Here they did a mock-up of the book. These look nice. They're not necessarily with the head of a falcon, but like this first one is actually really nice. It looks like, you know, you have the falcon here that could be like representative of Ra. Like this is what he actually looks like. And then here's the sort of the symbols, the sun behind him and the falcon. Not bad at all, actually. And then if you like one of these, you can come here, go ahead and download it, and it'll just automatically download, and then you can look it up. And I gotta say, you guys, like the detail on this thing is really, really nice. It has all of the trappings of any other AI generated image. Like there's some things in the armor, if you look too closely, you're like, that's not quite symmetrical or it doesn't quite make sense. But overall, this is really beautiful, you guys. It looks great overall. So I'm actually pretty happy with this. This is better than when I tried it earlier. And for reference, this right here is the image I generated in Midjourney that I used for a book cover. And I really liked this image because it looked like he had like a falcon hood and it was very mysterious. And I still like this image. I still think Midjourney is better at some things. In fact, very much, I've actually noticed this as I was playing around with it. The relationship between Dall-E 3 and Midjourney is actually, I think, very similar to the relationship between ChatGPT and Claude. Claude tends to be more creative and it sounds nicer, but ChatGPT follows directions better, but it's just a little rough around the edges. And I feel like Dall-E 3 is better at following directions in general, and it can do some things that Midjourney can't, for instance, text. So we're going to continue this conversation, and I'm going to say add text for an epic fantasy book that says Dawn of Ra, and see what that gives us, because Dall-E 3 is actually much better at doing text. Now the problem here, if you wanted to actually create a full book cover using one of these things, ideally a book cover should have the text and the image separate. So you need to go into Photoshop or Canva or whatever you're using and you separate them so you could like move the text around and stuff like that. It's very useful if you're taking that image and changing it into, say, an audiobook image where you need to change the positioning of certain words and things. Oh yeah, this is not oh man, I don't know what's going on here. It's doing some things that I feel like Midjourney did a version or two ago, like doing these like weird mashups that are a little bit terrifying. But this one here, ooh, this one turned out good. It's very similar to that first one it did. This one also pretty cool, a little wonky there with the text. It doesn't always get the text right, but as you can see, this one it did get right, at least with the main text. But, you know, with this text, clearly this was added after the fact. And I think for the time being, this is still going to be the better way to do it. However, having the ability to generate text is really great. So let's just say, let's open a new chat and let's try, give me a fantasy style text, black on white, that says Dawn of Ra. I'm not sure this is going to work. I haven't tested this yet. Okay, so it gave us some text here. Didn't quite get the text right anywhere. This one's the closest at getting the text right. This one's my favorite, but it obviously didn't get the text right. It got dawn and of. It just got, you know, we got two A's. So we could always regenerate this. And the white is not perfectly white too. This is another thing that Midjourney is actually pretty good at now. Is actually, if you ask it to have a white background, it will have a fully white background most of the time. And so close close. And then what you could do is you could take this, pull it into Photoshop, remove the background. If you have a black on white like this, it would be pretty easy to remove the background. And then you could use the stylized text in the cover, but it would have to be a separate element, if that makes sense, rather than, you know, trying to generate it as part of your book cover. But I will say this. A lot of times, you know, people aren't going to be using this to actually generate book covers, but you might use it to generate a concept. Say, I want something similar to this, and then you hand that over to your book designer, and they can do it for you. So some really cool things here. Now, let's talk about what other things you could do with Dall-E. I like the concept of possibly creating comic books, because Dall-E 3 seems to be a little bit better, a smidge better than Midjourney at creating consistent characters. And I'll show you what I mean. Give me a superhero. Give me an image of a 18-year-old woman with jaw-length hair, blonde hair, wearing a superhero costume. The costume is mostly white with gold and red highlights. And I could get maybe more specific. In fact, let's get a little more specific with gold bracers and red boots, a white cape, and a golden headband. That sounds pretty good. Oh, I'm gonna really push this, okay? Because this is an actual character of mine, one of my first and most beloved characters that I ever created. And so we're gonna say the superhero emblem is a stylized A and F inside of a circle. She is standing in a confident superhero pose. All right, and we'll see what it gives us. I'm curious to see how well it does with the costume and how consistent it gets with the costume. Because again, Dall-E 3 seems to be much better at following instructions. So we should be able to get some nuance, a little bit more tightness of control over little details within the images. It's not perfect by any means, but it can get much closer than Midjourney could. Like that whole prompt that I gave it would not have worked in Midjourney because you can't really get that sort of fine-tuned control. There are some advanced techniques you can use in Midjourney that allow you to change little bits and pieces, but overall, you're able to do things in one prompt in Dall-E 3 that you could not do in Midjourney. Okay, I made these all sideways for some reason. I don't know why I did that. This right here is the close. Oh my gosh, this is so good. This is the closest I've ever seen to this character. Ah, that is so close. The emblem in the center looks a little different than this, but that is close enough that like you could easily fix it in post. It seems there were some issues generating all the images. Okay, that's interesting. So it wasn't able to finish the third, and for some reason they're all sideways. I'm going to say try again and make it a full body shot in portrait mode. It's got the golden headband. It's got the, well, okay, this one got the cape color wrong because it's supposed to be a white cape. It still looks good in terms of color. This one got the color right. Yeah, the colors on this one are pretty much spot on. I didn't ask for this red around the hands here, but that looks fine. It looks great. And seeing as we can't see her boots in this shot, adding a little bit of red makes some sense. I'm actually really impressed with that. So if you can get that fine detailed and really specify all of these details, you're much more likely to get a close enough consistency of character to this person. Weird. Okay, so I just kind of redid them a little bit differently. This one's pretty close to how I envision her. Her face is weird there. This one again, spot on. Absolutely spot on. Oh man, I could not be happier with this one right here. I'm going to save this one actually. That is really good. Okay, so let's try something else and say now show her speeding through a city street at super speed. Okay, so now we have some images here of her speeding down. So it looks a little different. Her hair is longer in these shots, probably just because we're in a super speedy environment. This one didn't, I guess I didn't really specify that it should be a comic book style. So that's fine. It's still got the emblem more or less the same. She looks roughly the same as she should. So this is definitely closer to a more consistent character than we ever could have done before. And if I regenerated this enough times, we'd probably get something that I would like. We're going to say, give it one more. So if you can tell, like this is, I'm essentially creating a mini comic book. So we have like the hero pose, and then we show her speeding down a street. So now let's see what she does at the end of that street. Now show her arriving at a crime scene with a lot of yellow tape surrounding it and with a lot of police cars nearby. She stands confidently on the sidelines looking for whomever committed the crime. I'm not going to specify what the crime is because I don't want Dall-E to censor me. There are a lot more sense with Dall-E 3 than you could get with Midjourney. For example, you can't make images, at least not directly, of any celebrity or their face, their likeness. And the same goes for any copyrighted property. So if I wanted to create a picture of Batman, you couldn't do it. Now, there are ways to get around it. I've seen some of them. I think they're interesting. I hesitate to make videos about jailbreaking and doing stuff like that because, for one, I don't think they're going to last very long. I think, these are the things that OpenAI will discover in the initial beta and will fix quickly. And so for that reason, I get requests to do videos about stuff like that, jailbreaking all the time, and I don't really like to do them for that reason. Okay, so we got her here at the scene of the crime. This one here looks the best. We're starting to lose a little bit of the detail that we had before. We don't have the emblem on her chest anymore, but it does have, oh gosh, there's definitely a crime that happened here. It looks like that guy got run over by a bunch of pigeons. That's funny. But her face looks good. Everything looks pretty good. And I've noticed that the longer you take these prompts and these conversations in Dall-E 3 in one chat, the more it will start to lose a little bit of what it initially had. This one here is okay. Again, her costume is not quite the same as it was before. I didn't ask for a mask. Her hair is different here, but not too bad as well. Still looks great as an image overall. This one got her hair on completely. This image looks a little weird to me. It's like 3D rendered, but that's okay. Actually, hang on. Okay, you actually have some like police signage here on the side of these cars. It actually looks like it says police, or at least it looks close enough that if you're not looking too carefully, you'd think that's what it says. Let's see if it says, yeah, this one says police right there. It actually got it right. This one has too many L's, but most of these got the police on it. So there are some cool things. And honestly, I think if you were looking for like, what's the best AI art option out there, I think probably it would actually be depending on your situation. If you need something with text, then obviously Dall-E 3 would be good. If you need like a single object in a certain style and pose, like Midjourney is hands down the best, but Dall-E 3 is better at creating like a relationship between characters. Like, so I could add two different characters. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. We'll say two other characters, one with green hair and a red superhero hero uniform, and the other and we'll say Japanese man with black hair and a blue superhero uniform. Uniform. And we'll see what it does with that, because it's, from my experience so far, Dall-E 3 is definitely better at being able to differentiate between objects and to have them added individually, whereas Midjourney would just kind of like conflate all of those things together into one, or it would mix and match. It's very difficult to have two characters and to describe each distinctly in Midjourney and to have it get it right. Usually it'll create two characters, but it will be very much a mashup of everything you said and not specific to one or the other. So we'll see what it does here with this prompt. Okay, so it actually did, yeah, pretty good job here. We have the original character. In this case, this looks pretty much like how I envision her. Obviously, some of the details are slightly different. But we have the guy in the red superhero costume. It got the hairs wrong. So this guy was supposed to be the guy with the green hair, and this dude in the blue uniform is supposed to have black hair. Let's see some of these others. Okay, this one it got right. Little weirdness going on with her face over here. Overall, this one looks interesting. This looks like a low-budget TV something or other. I wonder, because you've got like some Japanese. I assume that's Japanese here. I wonder if it actually says something. And then this one. Okay, this one got the hairs right. This is supposed to be blue. Got that totally wrong. And I don't know what's going on with her thing here. This one is good, except it didn't get his hair green, but it did add green to his outfit here. Weird style here, but not too bad, not too bad. Also, I don't know what's going on with the police tape. So there's definitely some wonkiness, but I'll bet if you just had some patience and you worked on this for a while, you could eventually get what you wanted and get it close enough that with maybe taking it into Photoshop and modifying it just enough to get it perfect, you could easily create, say, a comic book or something with this. I want to go over one last use case just for fun, and there are a ton of different use cases that we could talk about. We could talk about concept art. We could talk about creating stickers or pins for swag and things like that, or t-shirts. But I'm just going to use a simple one. I'd like to create an author logo for Jason Hamilton. The logo should have fantasy elements to it. Now let's say have a fantasy style to it, but also elegant and minimalist. And well, I'll just leave it at that and see what it gives us. And again, I don't know why it writes these prompts. I wonder if it would be nice to have a way to like have it just follow your prompt and then maybe have the option for it to come up with its own prompts. Okay. I like this. This is actually really cool. It's got like a Celtic vibe to it, and you can see the J here and the H here. That's really cool, actually. I like that. And let's look at some of these other ones. This one, yeah, got the feather. That's a classic. And then this looks pretty good, except there's definitely some wonkiness here with the H. And this one's pretty cool too. I'm going to say try again and make it more epic. Plus make the background a pure white. Because I really want to get it into the, instead of this sort of eggshell color, I want to get it into a pure white, because that'll make it easier to modify in Photoshop. Okay, this one's cool, but there's no J or H in there. Well, this one is crazy. I actually like it. I wouldn't really use this as a logo, but as like a, I don't know, something. I could use this somewhere. And then like a shield crest here. This one looks pretty good. And then as far as my white background, these two here look a little better there. So doable, I guess. All right, so this is pretty good. So my overall thoughts for Dall-E 3 so far that I've played around with it, and I'll probably do a few more videos digging deeper into some of the potential here, but I think it's really cool, and I love the ability to be able to sort of chat with it and ask it to add things or take away things. I wish there was a little bit more fine-tuned control. Like I wish I could say, let's take that specific image and modify it, or to upload my own image and modify that. I hope that's a feature that comes in the future, because that, to me, makes this very difficult. I can't really say, hey, I like this Celtic one here, and, can we take this one and just modify it slightly? I can only tell it to modify the prompt overall, and so it won't necessarily modify just this one or give me variations of that one like you could do in Midjourney. So do I think this is a Midjourney killer? I don't think so. In fact, I know Midjourney's got a new update coming very soon that will probably increase the output and the overall style and quality even more. When Dall-E 2 came out, it was by far the best on the market. It was way better than Midjourney at that time. But then Dall-E 2 just sort of stagnated for a while, and Midjourney became this huge thing that easily became the leader in the AI art space. And I have no doubt, Dall-E 3 has definitely come on par with Midjourney here. But, for instance, with text, it can do text, and it does that better than Midjourney. I have no doubt that within a few updates, Midjourney will be doing text just as well, if not better. And there are still a lot of things that Midjourney does way better than Dall-E. But there are certain use cases where I think Dall-E is a little bit better. If you're doing a comic and you want specific details on your characters and to get those characters a little more consistent, I think it might be easier to do in Dall-E 3. Plus, Dall-E 3 has an API, or at least it will. I don't know if that's currently available yet. And so people in different programs out there will be able to put their own spin on it and potentially do some cool things with it. So we'll see what happens with that in the future. And in the meantime, I'll keep making videos on this. If there's anything in particular you want to see, leave a comment below, and I will see you in the next video.